dream, a big dream. Now, we all have dreams and we want to accomplish them at some point in life, someday. Maybe when we are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Now, and one of the dreams is to live a long life and live healthy. Because if you're looking to achieve any other thing in life and you're not healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, then you may not go far. So it's important to take our health uh, seriously. This is Now Tell Us. I'm your host, Anthony Moirore. At Now Tell Us, we have guests come and tell us stories. They come and inspire us. They come and educate us on a subject. And always we are having a great time. I love every episode that we've done so far, almost going to 200 episodes. And this is because of you and because of the guests that we have. Today's guest is known as Christian Yordanov. And I hope I got that right. He's going to tell me once he comes. This is a reminder to all of you who are watching out there. Please share this video with all your friends, or if you're listening to the audio version, even the recorded version, please remember to share with your friends. Subscribe to our channels. If you have a question, ask. We'll try our level best to answer. And today's question should be based on health. If you have a comment to make, we love feedback, so please give it to us. And now, because we have a lot to cover with our guest today, I would like to invite you to join me as we go together to meet our guest today, Christian Yordanov. Here we go. Hi, Christian.
Hi, Anthony. Thank you for having me on, bro.
How are you?
I'm very good. Great to be
Yeah,
here with you.
welcome to Now Tell Us.
Thank you.
It's such an honor to have you here today.
Thank you. Likewise, brother.
Yeah, I was curious whether I got your name right. Yordanov?
Yes. Like
Okay.
like you had enough,
Mm-hmm.
but you're enough.
Yordanov.
Like you had enough, like you
Oh,
had enough for the Yordanov.
now we can't have enough before we've gotten started. So we haven't had enough. We have Yordanov here.
In the end, you'll be saying you had enough.
Uh, Looking forward to what you've got to share with us today. Where does that name come from?
It comes from Bulgaria, which is where I'm from. It's quite a common name, actually. It's probably as common as maybe Jones or some name like that would be in, let's say, the USA or the UK. So it's pretty common.
Okay. Any
Yeah.
special meaning to it?
No, the names in Bulgaria, they are from the family name and the father's name. The second name, it's from the father with an ov at the end. So it's you take, like, for example, my child will have Christian of as a second name, and then the
Okay.
family name is just an ov. It's really very uncreative when you actually compare it to other cultures.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I would say it's creative because likewise, we take the father's name and we don't add anything to it. So
yeah.
when in Bulgaria you choose to add something to it, that's being creative.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
like how in Spain and Portugal they add the mother and the father's name. That way, we can't have any arguments about whose name the child receives.
That's that's more creative.
Yeah,
At some point, you wouldn't have to deny where you're coming from.
exactly.
Yeah. So, um, what is it that you do, if I may get to ask you this point?
So what I do very basically is I help people to resolve their own health problems
Hmm.
using natural ways. So diet, supplementation, stress reduction strategies, and a few other more, you know, lifestyle things. And Generally, the people that come to work with me usually either have been very disappointed by the care they've received so far.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they have not received any real care for multiple years. Also, I've written a book on autism and children's health. So sometimes parents come to me because their small child has some type of health issue.
Mm-hmm.
So very basically, that's what I do. And what is different from the way I do it from many other sort of health coaches in the spaces, I use lab testing, blood, urine, hair, stool testing, and similar things in order to actually identify the biochemical metabolic imbalances that a person has. So we
Mm-hmm.
have actual data with which we can guide the supplement diet lifestyle protocols in order to really zero in and zone in on the exact things that are um, hindering that person's optimal health from manifesting. So once we identify those things, we we attempt to remove them or at least mitigate or ameliorate them. And then what happens over time is as they address them with, again, diet, supplementation, stress reduction, lifestyle strategies, generally they start to feel better. And usually, if the person is didn't wait too long to get in touch with me, usually we can have a full sort of recovery and people begin to thrive again and are happy and have a lot of energy, and generally everybody's happy.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I would like to be happy about myself. And when I take good care of my health, that's where the main happiness is gonna be found. Don't
Yeah,
we all wanna be happy at some point?
sure.
Now, I love what you do already. Just by hearing this, I have not had enough. I just love what you you have to share with us at this point. But
Amazing.
I'm curious. How did you pick an interest in this area?
So with me, it was basically around 2018 where I was getting into the health topics quite deeply, into the microbiota, the gut bacteria inside our gut, and how they can influence our brain chemistry, how they can influence our behavior. So at that time, I was like, wow, so the bacteria in our gut, they create chemicals that can affect how we feel. They can, and vitamins, minerals, and these chemicals in our body, they literally dictate how we feel, how we are in the world. And people around me were having health problems. My mother was having health problems with the gut. My grandmother, she was quite elderly at the time, and she was having quite a lot of health problems. And basically the doctors were just pumping her full of medications and poison, basically toxic drugs, and just making her worse, and nobody was helping her. So I was also quite worried in many ways, and seeing these people suffer. It's like I've been healthy so far. I was maybe in my early 30s. I was very healthy, but I had lived a very poor lifestyle in terms of diet and taking care of myself for the previous 15 years. In my 20s, a lot of partying and very irresponsible sort of living. So I was at that age where I started thinking, well, wow, and I mean, is this going to happen to me? Am I going to end up suffering like this for maybe 20, 30 years before I die? I don't want to do that. So I started digging in, and I had to figure out, is this stuff genetic, like heart disease and cancer and all these other issues? And I started finding out that it's actually not genetic for the most part. We only say it's genetic. I shouldn't say we, but the medical system says things are genetic until such time that we figure out that they're not. Like we figure out mechanisms or certain triggers for things. Until then, something that is mysterious in ways that we call it genetic or idiopathic, which is a term for unknown cause. um so yeah, so I started digging into these things, and that's when I started, kind of in 2019. I started training as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and in late 2018, someone in my family, a child, was suspected of being on the autistic spectrum. So that was another thing that I said to myself, I need to figure out, is this thing really genetic as they're saying, or is there something more? And it always is the case that it's something more. If you
Mm-hmm.
hear in the public sphere, in the mainstream, that this is genetic, like schizophrenia, it's genetic and you're just born with it and there's nothing you can do with it. Well, that's actually not true. There's a lot. It can be hereditary, as it can run in families, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not. If something is hereditary, it doesn't mean it's genetic. There are other mechanisms of inheriting diseases or conditions, or good traits, not necessarily just our genetics. So this uh, this led me into researching autism very deeply, and in 2019 I decided to write a book because I saw that many parents, excuse me, many parents were being told as soon as their child is diagnosed that it's a condition that is for life. It's
Mm-hmm.
genetic. There's no cure. There's nothing you can do about it. And I thought that was a horrible thing to say to a parent in such a vulnerable time, because they lose all hope. So with my book, I researched the book in 2019, published it in 2020, with the intention to share this information with more parents. And that information being is that a lot of these children suffer from hidden underlying health problems that we can identify with lab tests and address with diet, supplementation, and basic other things like lifestyle things, like cleaning up the environment at home from toxic substances, like cleaning materials, hairsprays, all these other plastics. So that's kind of how I got into the health stuff. And since then, I've also became a father. So I understand more the challenges of parents in trying to keep their kids healthy and safe in such a crazy modern world. And I've worked with all kinds of people from the age of 2 to about 73. So I've men, women, children I've worked with, and I've seen all kinds of health issues. But what I've seen so far is, if something is not terminal, as in they don't tell you you have 2 weeks to live or 6 months to live. If it's not terminal or like a serious genetic anomaly, or mutation that is causing the problem,
Mm-hmm.
usually these things can be, if not resolved fully, they can be improved, where we improve the quality of the life of the person in a great way.
That's beautiful. Wonderful. And I love that. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for that explanation of how you came to this point. And we can see your journey is so far so good.
Mm.
I'm imagining, because you mentioned something that many people are not aware, and it's good to bring it to their attention. You bring the idea that some chronic patterns, some chronic diseases, some places we find ourselves sick, and we can attest that we had it's genetic, so that we accept it. You mentioned that some of these are caused by stress. Can you dive us deeper into that?
Oh man, this is such an interesting topic. So when you think about it, so at a very basic level, what is stress?
Mm-hmm.
So stress is, to the body, a signal that things are not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when things are not okay, that means usually it's your life is in danger of some way, shape, or form. So back when we were hunter gatherers, let's say, um, the biggest stressors on us were getting eaten by a big animal,
Mm-hmm.
maybe war with another tribe, and another big stress was not having food.
Mm-hmm.
So famine or starvation. So the body adapted mechanisms to deal with these stresses. So, for example, if there's no food, um, we start breaking down our fatty tissues, right? So when when we start doing that, it sends a signal to the body that we're kind of we can get into ketosis. We start making ketones from the fat, so we can start making energy instead of using glucose, right? So this is we can unpack this a little bit more now. A lot since kind of 2008 9, around that time, the low carb and ketogenic diet has been quite popular, right? So people are reducing their carbohydrates
Mm-hmm.
to to lose some weight. But what is happening when when you start doing that diet? You are actually signaling to the body, you're creating a stress, you're signaling to the body that you are not in a state of abundance.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you reduce the carbohydrates in your diet, cortisol goes up, adrenaline goes up. Cortisol breaks down your bones, your skin, your muscles, and with that, those fragments, the liver makes glucose to keep. It's a survival mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
The adrenaline that you secrete, it um, it breaks down fatty tissue, so fat starts circulating in your system, and you again, it's a survival mechanism, so you can use the fats for energy. But you're not in danger. You're just, you with your dietary habits. It could be fasting.
Mm-hmm.
So fasting for a bit or for a long time sends a very similar stress signal that you're in starvation mode. And then if you go low carb and then you do intermittent fasting, you are actually constantly sending a signal to your body that you are in a famine. Now if you couple that with psychological stress, which we are under unprecedented levels. So
Mm-hmm.
from the morning you wake up, you're on your phone. Oh, I have to get the kids to work. Now you're in traffic, and then you're at the store. There's a queue in the store. Someone is pushing in front of you. Then you get a text. There's an emergency. Your boss is calling you. Why are you late? A million things. So back in the day, life wasn't like this. We had stress, but the stress was again chasing down an animal to kill it and eat it, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe running away from an animal, and then maybe having a few days or a couple of weeks where you couldn't do much because you're not eating. But
Mm-hmm.
when it's a constant thing, our body thinks it's either in a famine or a war all the time, or both all the time, right? So
Mm-hmm.
imagine now you're in this stress state. You're breaking down your lean muscle tissue, your bones, your skin, that ages you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the fats running around. Now, you next time you have a normal meal, if you spike your insulin with like carbohydrates because you've been so hungry from all this stress,
Mm-hmm.
um, you're now sending a signal to your body that there is food now, there's calories, and the body's like, I have to store all of these calories. So all these circulating fats in your body, they get stored, but they used to be in kind of under your skin,
Mm-hmm.
subcutaneous. Now they get stored in organs. They can damage organs. So this is like a real ball of yarn people have gotten themselves into. I think one of the reasons so many people can't lose weight is because if you do it via this way, low carb dieting, ketogenic, you are going to fail, because when you diet, you reduce your muscle mass,
Mm-hmm.
your metabolic rate goes down, and then when you resume your normal diet, um, well, your metabolic rate is lower, you lost muscle mass, so now you will store more fat, and you will get sicker and unhealthy and more unhealthy, right? So that's one way um, that we can really get our this stress. It's more of a biochemical, physiological stress. But then the psychological stress, I already started talking about that. This is another thing that you might be sitting like we are sitting right now, and your mind, with your thoughts, let's say you're at the computer and someone on the internet is really annoying you, or your boss, or a
Mm-hmm.
colleague, or a project deadline, that stress literally causes the same cascade of hormones and neurotransmitters as if you were in a fight with a real person, in a
Mm-hmm.
war, chasing an animal. So we are chronically, most people are chronically in this type of stress. So you are there raising your cortisol, raising your adrenaline, raising other stress hormones. A lot of people's estrogen gets raised too much, and that again causes a cascade of things. So next time you eat a meal, your body, it doesn't know that you were sitting all day. It still thinks you're in a famine, in a war. So
Mm-hmm.
it will store more fat. So that's why people actually literally being under stress, people gain a lot of weight around the midsection. It's a very common manifestation of stress, and this is what is gradually and slowly killing us and aging us prematurely.
Oh, and how do you advise people to go about it? Because I from your explanation, we kind of get that maybe fasting is not a good idea. Maybe some kinds of dieting is not the best idea. How do we go about this?
So I think, yeah, fasting. Look, anything that becomes a mainstream thing, it's probably not that good. So, the Macarena, that was terrible. Spice Girls, that was terrible. Fasting, keto, now these are big things. They're probably not all they're cracked up to be. If
Mm-hmm,
everybody and their dog is now on a fasting regimen, intermittent fasting, keto, low carb, the best way. So if you're a relatively normal weight, or maybe a little 5-10 kilograms overweight,
mm-hmm,
um probably the best thing to do is not to fast, not to diet, and not to do much strenuous exercise. And I'm talking, like, you shouldn't go run for an hour,
mm,
like high intensity. You shouldn't probably exercise every day, or try to do a half marathon or a full marathon. That's another stress that, again, if you start exercising like crazy, especially if you're doing low carb or dieting, you're adding another stress. So the best thing to do is actually to work on raising your metabolic rate. And
mm-hmm,
if you raise your metabolic rate, you will burn more fat at rest. So another thing is adding more muscle mass to your frame will
mm-hmm,
burn more fat, because at rest muscles burn fat, and when you're doing more strenuous activity they burn glucose or glycogen. So the best thing to do is to normalize your macronutrient ratios to roughly a third of everything. So a third protein, a third carbohydrates, and a third fat. And then you can tweak them up and down a small bit. So some people do better with 40 uh, percent protein, 30% carbs, and 30% fat. Other people that are more, let's say your job is more physical, like if you work in construction, you may need more carbohydrates and a bit more protein, for example, right?
mm-hmm,
um if you are a smaller person, let's say you're a woman in your 60s, you probably need less calories than a guy in his 30s that's twice your size. So you have to really know your body, but starting at 33, 33, 33 with the macronutrients is a good baseline. And then um this is the first thing you want to do, and then gradual walking, just working up to walking 30, 45 minutes a day, and then a little bit of light resistance training with weights. I think most people, if they do that, they're not sending a signal of famine to the body. So you're eating carbs and you're eating enough protein, that's very important,
mm-hmm,
and you're not exercising too much, because that again causes the cortisol and the adrenaline and all the stress hormones to increase. And you're doing some activity which is again low stress, and it reduces the chance of injury. So doing that, generally you will um you will get a lot of like your weight will normalize, your health markers will improve, things like stress hormones will tend to go down, your insulin might start dropping, your blood glucose in the morning might start dropping, your triglycerides and cholesterol will probably normalize, and most importantly your thyroid function will start to improve. Because if you do low carb or a lot of exercise with low carb as well, that combination, your thyroid would just it would turn the dial down on your metabolism. And that's why some people, like I know, uh, more older folks, they can eat 1,000 calories a day barely, and that's too much food for them. And
mm-hmm,
I eat 3 times that amount, and I'm not gaining weight. It's because I'm burning that energy. So that's a good way to go about it. If you have a lot of excess weight, there's other risks there, because when that weight starts getting lost, what you want to do is it happens very gradually, because a lot of toxic chemicals are stored in our fatty tissues, right?
mm-hmm,
So if you lose a lot of weight fast, a lot of those toxins are going to get mobilized through the bloodstream, and the body will use it antioxidants to defend you, to excrete them and neutralize these toxins. But it will, if you're not supplementing your diet and eating very well, it will probably, your body will get overwhelmed by this stress. So I've seen this on hormone testing on people. If they lose a lot of weight, or they have a history of yo-yo dieting, up and down, going down in weight,
Mm-hmm.
usually their estrogen is very high for men. And for women, it's also bad to have a very high estrogen, but a man will have very low testosterone, very high estrogen, cortisol, the stress hormones will be very dysregulated, and generally they will be feeling pretty bad, energy wise, quality of life wise. So if you want to lose a lot of weight, the best way to do it is very slowly, so your body can keep up with the toxins that are getting released, and the the fact that we store these omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids, which when we burn, they also create a lot of can create a lot of damage. So you want to do it slowly to not overwhelm your body. This is one thing that I think many people make the mistake, is if you have, let's say, 20-30 kilograms, and you're like, okay, new year, 1st January, new year's resolution, I'm gonna get in shape, and they lose, 10, 20, 30 kilograms that in 6 months. That is very dangerous. And I think what we shouldn't be chasing numbers on a scale. We
Mm-hmm.
should be chasing good health. If you get the person healthy, this is what I do. If you get the person healthy, they will naturally start shifting the weight. And a lot of the times we are actually holding on to the weight because our stress hormones are dysregulated, like we already talked about, cortisol, adrenaline, etc. But
Mm-hmm.
also because the body knows that those toxins, if they get released into the bloodstream, they're going to cause all manner of havoc with the kidneys, the liver, even the brain. They can get stuck in the brain, and the body is actually quite smart. So I've actually have friends that have been exercising almost every day. They go to the gym for 10 years or 8 years or 12 years, and the weight doesn't move. They're kind of at the same weight, a little bit overweight. And I say to them, you're actually better off staying that way than losing the weight,
Mm-hmm.
because if you want to lose the weight, you have to follow my advice and start detoxing first, and then when you detox, it will magically just go away over time.
Hmm. That's wonderful. And thank you for the foods that you advise people to take and the percentage, the 33, 33, 33. But then you find that, and this is something that you're mentioning, that even when I take the recommended diet, or not using diet in this case, as you are
Mm.
saying, but I eat right, I also find that I may be lacking some of the nutrients, some of the things that I should be having. Talk about supplements and how to go about that.
Yeah, well, the recommended daily allowance says they're not super scientific, first of all, and some of them were done with like prisoners, the studies, prison populations.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the recommended daily allowance is the amount of food you need to eat so you don't die or get a horrible nutrient deficiency like scurvy or beriberi or pellagra or whatever. So the recommended daily allowances are not designed with your optimal health in mind. They
Okay.
are designed to keep you alive and be a good member of society, but not too healthy, because we want to sell you pharmaceuticals, of course, and treatments and stuff. So I believe, and the reason I say I believe, it's not a religious belief, it's from my clinical experience. I know, for my the clients I work with, um, how many of them have nutrient deficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
So through that, extrapolating to the wider population, because a lot of people that come to me are actually eating quite well already and taking sometimes 15 supplements. So extrapolating to the general population, most people are quite severely deficient in many things. So at least some of the B vitamins, most people I believe are not getting enough.
Mm-hmm.
um, Most people don't get enough zinc. So especially if you're a man, or a person that is bigger, let's say you're 180 centimeters, you're 70, 80, 90 kilograms, your requirements for nutrients are going to be much higher than, someone that's like a woman that's 55 kilograms, right? So we cannot, first of all, these recommended daily allowances. So for a man, like the zinc for a woman, I think it was 11 milligrams.
Mm-hmm.
For men it's 50 milligrams a day, but I think it even revised down the man's one. But 50 milligrams a day is, I personally have been taking up to 60 milligrams additional to the food I eat, so
Mm-hmm.
just as a supplement, for over 5 years. And I feel pretty good taking rather large doses of these things, because again, some of us, have a higher need, because let's say we have a more physical job, um, or we go through certain nutrients faster. So I honestly believe these RDAs are a complete joke, and we all need to be supplement, because first of all, actually, if you take an app that tracks your diet and you
Mm-hmm.
start tracking your diet like I have, I noticed how hard it is to even meet the RDAs, the recommended daily allowances. I remember I did this back in 2018. I think I did this, and I was doing okay, eating really well. I was doing okay. I just had a little bit of a lack in vitamin E.
Okay.
Um, but I know the way I eat, most people, and I mean most people, like
Mm-hmm.
95% of the human population in the world,
Mm-hmm.
don't eat that well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I am certain, if it's hard enough for me to meet my RDAs, that most people are not meeting their RDA. So when I test clients, we look at things like sometimes blood, sometimes hair. We see minerals. Zinc is low. Magnesium is pretty much always low. When we look at B vitamins, a lot of, especially vitamin B2, is very low, because the good source of that is liver, and most people are not eating liver anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um i I honestly believe we all need to be supplementing things, like for pretty much all of my clients. The first two minerals I would recommend is magnesium
Mm-hmm.
bisglycinate, or glycinate. It's one of the best forms of magnesium that, absorption wise, it's
Mm-hmm.
good for improving sleep, and it's good for everything. It's used in in all cells have magnesium. So zinc will be the second one. And I almost always recommend B vitamins. If you don't eat liver and eggs and plenty of meat, I
Mm-hmm.
always recommend B vitamins. So these would be the basic things for someone that's 30 years or older. But many people are also deficient in selenium, especially because we are also exposed to a lot of mercury, and
Mm-hmm.
selenium is used to detoxify. One of the ways to detoxify mercury is with selenium. Um, so I recommend those quite often. And there's more minerals, of course. There's other nutrients like choline, which is found in liver and eggs, which is very good for brain function. I take supplements with choline, like alpha GPC. This
Mm-hmm.
is a specific supplement to help with brain function, but you
Okay.
can get the choline molecule in eggs and liver, and it's really good for just general health, but also for liver health and for brain function. So eating plenty of eggs is a multivitamin. Eggs are like a multivitamin. Liver is like a multivitamin. So I believe you should always get it from real food, but if you can't consistently, adding things like zinc, calcium, and magnesium together. Vitamin D3 it's quite important, which needs to be balanced with vitamin K,
Mm-hmm.
and also vitamin E. A good form of vitamin E is very very important, because it's, again, it's, for me it was the hardest thing to get in my diet,
Mm.
which is because I don't eat a lot of seeds and nuts, which is the best form of the best way to get vitamin E.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for all that. And I appreciate all our guests who are making comments. Wise Nyaga is listening all the way from Nairobi, Kenya. We have Stephenson Dati, and he's saying that's good education. And really, it's good education that we are getting here. Supplements is something that many people don't concern themselves with. And as we are getting from you, it's an important subject that we should be focusing on.
Hmm.
Yeah, so those are the, and you've covered almost everything that we were to cover in this episode, and it's just about the time that we are signing off. But before we go off, we would like to know how can we follow up with you, because some of the people would want to know much more, and I know you share more on some platforms that you have. You can tell us about it and then how to find you.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, my website is christianyordanov.com. It's just my name.com, and that's where I don't really use social media much. I don't post much. I'm trying to post more now. I took a 2 year break off of social media,
Hmm.
which was great. Definitely,
Hmm.
social media can be a little bit stressful, but yes, on my website we have all my latest work, links to, I have some courses, some free courses, I have some podcasts. I have a podcast on children's health. I'm starting a new podcast soon all about detoxification, weight loss, gut health, nutrition, all that good stuff. And yeah, so my website will have all the stuff. I also have a book that I've written, as I mentioned, on autism and children's health. People can get the link from the website. And if anyone needs to contact me, my email is just my name, Christian at christianyordanov.com. So if you need anything, you can always let me know, ping me, and I'll try to help out however I can.
Thank you very much, Christian.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah, and to all the guests, rush to Christian Yoranov and connect with christianyordanov.com, and connect with him, learn more about your health. Is important. So go and get the free stuff that he's offering. And also, if you can sign up with him for follow up on your health and what you take and what not to, then that would be good. Yeah, we are almost coming to the end. But before we go, we always love to be left with a few words that we should always remember. And this coming from Christian Yordanov, what are they? Few words that we should always remember.
A few words that we should always remember. Whoa, that is okay. I wasn't expecting that one. Now I have to step up to the plate here. I think we have to remember that we live in a different world than what our bodies are adapted for. In a perfect world with no toxins, with no pesticides in the food supply, with no chemicals and metals in the water, and pollution in the air, maybe in that perfect world, we can just eat fruits and vegetables and whatever else and be totally fine. But the world we live in nowadays is actually very heavily polluted. So we have to step up our game in terms of our diet, and um, we have to really start investing in our health, because the reason why half of the world at this point has health problems and diagnoses and stuff like that is because they got the rug pulled under them. They're thinking they're living 200 years ago, but they're not. So the food supply quality is reduced, the toxin exposure has increased, but people are not compensating that by investing in better food and buying supplements and taking care of stress and stuff like that. So we have to, if we want to live well and thrive, and not just increase our lifespan but our health span, so the amount of time that we actually healthy while we are alive. If we want to do that and not not succumb to heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and all the thousands, autoimmunity, all the dementia, Alzheimer's, if we want to avoid that, we better step up our game ASAP, because we live in unprecedented times, which means we have to take unprecedented measures to protect our health and that of our families.
That's wonderful. We'll remember that. I'm not conditioned to the conditions of this world. So, but
Hmm.
take care of my health. I'm gonna take care of what I'm doing because not everything is healthy. Yeah,
Mm,
Wise Nyaga says health is wealth. We are responsible for our health. Thank you very much, Wise. We appreciate.
that's a very good statement.
Health is wealth. Yeah, it is good.
Yeah.
And then we have Stephenson saying, thanks, Christian and Anthony, for the education.
Thank you for tuning in, guys.
Yes, we appreciate you taking your time and listening. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, all the viewers, all the listeners. And after we are done with this episode, those who get to listen to the recorded version, we also thank you for taking your time and watching. You can always give us feedback. We will appreciate. And Christian, this just about it for today.
Thank you so much for having me on, Anthony. It was a great pleasure to talk to you, man.
Yeah, it was great pleasure for us to listen to you tell us. We actually haven't had enough, so we should be rushed to christianyordanov.com to get more. Yeah, this has been Now Tell Us. I've been your host, Anthony Murori, and together with our guest today, Christian Yordanov, we're saying take care of your health and bye for now.
Bye bye.
Bye.